The mining colony on Kepler-7 was nothing special to look at. Gray buildings stretched across red dirt under two pale suns that never quite set. At the same time, Jake Miller wiped sweat from his forehead as he loaded another cart of star crystals. These glowing rocks powered everything from ships to cities, but mining them was hard, dangerous work. Jake had been here for 2 years now. He came on the colony ship with 5,000 other humans looking for work and a new life. Earth was too crowded, too polluted. This alien world with its strange purple sky and double sunsets offered hope, even if that hope came with backbreaking labor. Today started like any other day. Jake woke at 5 in the morning, ate his protein paste, and headed to mine, Shaft 12. He worked with a crew of 20 men and women all covered in the same red dust that got into everything. But as he pushed his cart toward the processing station, something caught his eye high above on the crystal platforms that grew. Naturally, from the mountainside stood a figure. Jake had seen the platforms before, but they were always empty. The elves who ruled this world stayed in their floating cities miles above the human settlements. They wanted nothing to do with the dirty miners below. But there she was, an elf woman with long silver hair that seemed to glow in the morning light. She wore a simple white dress that flowed around her like water, and around her feet, 3 small creatures moved in circles. Dragons, Jake whispered to himself. Real dragons. They were not the massive beasts from Earth stories. These dragons were small, no bigger than cats. One was deep blue like the ocean. Jake remembered from Earth. Another was green as emerald. The third shimmered, purple like the evening sky. Their wings were delicate like butterfly wings but stronger. Jake should have kept working. His supervisor would notice if he stopped, but he could not look away. The elf woman seemed to be waiting for something, or someone. Her violet eyes scanned the mining colony below. Then their eyes met. Even from this distance, Jake felt a shock run through him. The elf woman did not look away. Instead, she raised one hand in what might have been a greeting or an invitation. Jake looked. Around, none of his crew had noticed. They were all focused on their work, bent over their tools and carts. The supervisor was in the office checking quotas. This was his chance. Jake put down his cart and started walking toward the mountain path. Nobody used this path. It led up to the crystal platforms, but humans were not allowed there. The treaty between elves and humans was clear about boundaries. Humans worked the lower grounds. Elves lived in the sky. The path was steeper than it looked. Jake had to stop several times to catch his breath. The air got thinner as he climbed. His mining boots slipped on loose rocks, but he kept going. Something pulled him forward. Maybe curiosity, maybe fate, maybe just the need to see something beautiful in this harsh world as he climbed. Jake thought about the stories he had heard about elves. They lived for hundreds of years. Some said they could read minds, others claimed they controlled magic. But the most common story was that elves hated humans. That was why they stayed separate. The war had ended 50 years ago before Jake was born, but the scars remained. Humans and elves had fought over colony worlds for decades. Millions died on both sides. Finally, they signed a treaty. Humans could mine, and farm elves would rule from above. They would share the same worlds, but never the same spaces. Jake reached a flat section of the path and stopped to rest. He could see the platform clearly now. The elf woman stood at the edge watching him. Her dragons had noticed him too. They sat in a row like tiny guards, their jeweled eyes following his every move. He started climbing again. His legs burned and his chest hurt. But he was close now. Just a few more minutes. The platform was a natural formation of purple crystal that jutted out from the mountain like a giant table. Its surface was smooth, polished by wind and time. Jake pulled himself up the final rocks and stood at the edge of the platform. He stayed there, not sure if he should step onto the crystal surface. This was elf territory. He was breaking the treaty just by being here. The elf woman smiled. It was a small smile but warm, like she had been hoping he would come. Her dragons made soft, chirping sounds. They did not seem angry or afraid, just curious. "Come closer," she said. Her voice was musical with an accent Jake had never heard before. "Please, I mean no harm." Jake took a careful step onto the crystal platform, then another. The surface was warm under his boots and seemed to hum with energy. The dragons watched him but did not move from their spot near the elf woman. "My name is Luna," she said. "I have been watching your colony for many days." "Why?" Jake asked. He was surprised he could speak at all. His heart was beating so fast, he thought it might burst. Luna looked sad for a moment. "Because I need help. Human help, and you are the first one brave enough to climb this path." Jake moved closer but kept a respectful distance. The dragons began to move again, walking in slow circles around Luna's feet. Their scales caught the light, making tiny rainbows on the crystal platform. "What kind of help?" Jake asked. Luna reached into a small bag at her side and pulled out something that made Jake gasp. It was a sphere about the size of an apple made of what looked like golden glass. Inside it swirled patterns of light, moved like living things. "This is a memory stone," Luna said. "It contains truth about the war, truth that both our peoples need to know, but I cannot share it alone. I need a human to help me. Someone brave. Someone who wants peace more than revenge." Jake stared at the stone. It was the most beautiful thing he had seen since leaving Earth. The patterns inside seemed to call to him, promising answers to questions he had not known to ask. "Why me?" Jake asked. "I am just a miner. Nobody important." Luna shook her head. "You climbed this path when you saw me. That took courage. Most humans would have looked away, gone back to work. But you chose to come. You chose to be curious. Instead of afraid." One of the dragons, the purple one, walked toward Jake. It sniffed at his boots, then his hands. Jake held very still. The little dragon made a pleased sound and rubbed its head against his leg. "Like a cat. Star likes you," Luna said with surprise. "Dragons can sense a person's true nature. Star has never approached a human before." Jake carefully reached down and touched the dragon's head. Its scales were warm and smooth. The dragon purred a sound like crystals chiming together. The other two dragons came over to investigate. Soon all three were circling around Jake's legs. Luna laughed. It was a sound like silver bells. "You are full of surprises." "Human Jake?" "My name is Jake." "Well, Jake," Luna said, holding out the memory stone. "Will you help me save both our peoples? Will you be brave enough to learn the truth?" Jake looked at the glowing sphere, then at Luna, then at the three dragons who had decided he was worth trusting. He thought about his life in the mines, the endless days of hard work and gray dust. He thought about Earth dying slowly while humans and elves lived apart on new worlds, refusing to work together. He thought about being brave, about doing something that mattered. Jake said, "I will help you." Luna held the memory stone out to Jake, but before he could take it, a shadow fell across the platform. The temperature dropped suddenly, and the three dragons scattered behind Luna, making frightened sounds. A tall figure appeared from nowhere, as if stepping out of the air itself. The elf man wore robes of midnight blue with silver patterns that moved across the fabric like living constellations. His face was angular and harsh, with the same violet eyes as Luna, but cold where hers were warm. His silver hair was pulled back in a warrior braid. Jake knew without being told that this was someone powerful, someone dangerous. "Father," Luna said, her voice steady, but Jake heard tension underneath. Aldrin stood perfectly still, but energy crackled around him like invisible lightning. "So this is what my daughter does when she thinks I am not watching," Aldrin said. His voice was deep and carried the weight of authority. "You bring a human to our sacred platforms. You show him our most guarded secrets. The memory stone is not just ours," Luna said. "It belongs to both races. They deserve to know." Aldrin moved forward, and Jake felt pressure in the air like before a storm. The dragons pressed against Luna's legs, seeking comfort. The purple one, Star, looked at Jake with worried eyes. "This human is a miner," Aldrin said, looking at Jake like he was something unpleasant, a nobody from the dirt levels. "And you would trust him with knowledge that could destroy us all?" Jake wanted to run. Every instinct told him to get away from this angry elf who could probably kill him with a thought. But he stayed. His feet felt rooted to the crystal platform. Luna had asked for his help. She had called him brave. He would not prove her wrong. "My lord," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I mean no disrespect. I came because your daughter asked for help." Aldrin turned his full attention to Jake, and it felt like being looked at by a mountain or an ocean, something vast and old and dangerous. "You speak when not spoken to human. You stand on sacred ground where your kind is forbidden, and you dare to interfere in matters beyond your understanding. Father, please." Luna stepped between them. "He is different. The dragons chose him. That has to mean something. Dragons choose based on instinct," Aldrin said. "They do not understand politics or consequences, but they understand hearts." Luna argued, "And his heart is good. Look at them." Star had moved back to Jake and was rubbing against his leg again. The blue and green dragons watched from behind Luna, but their eyes were on Jake, not Aldrin. "Tell me, human." Aldrin said, "Why should I not remove you from this platform right now? Why should I not make you forget you ever saw my daughter or the memory stone?" Jake thought carefully. This was a test, maybe his only chance to convince this powerful elf I am not important. Jake said, "You are right about that. I mine crystals all day and go to bed tired every night. But that is exactly why Luna needs someone like me." Aldrin raised an eyebrow. "Continue." Jake took a breath. "The important people, the leaders and generals, they all benefit from keeping things as they are. Separate but stable. No war but no peace either. But people like me, we just want to live. We want to work and eat and maybe have families someday. We do not care about old hatred. We care about tomorrow being better than today." Luna smiled at him, but Aldrin remained stone-faced. "Pretty words," the elf lord said. "But words are easy. Actions are hard. What action would you take, human? If you knew the truth in this stone, I would share it," Jake said without hesitation. "Not all at once. Not in a way that would cause panic, but slowly, carefully, person by person, until enough people knew that hiding it became impossible. And if that truth led to war," Aldrin asked, "if your people demanded revenge?" Jake shook his head. "My grandmother survived the first attack in the war. She lived through things I cannot imagine. But she never taught me to hate elves. She taught me that hate is poison. It kills the person holding it first." Aldrin was quiet for a long moment. The only sound was the wind across the platform and the soft chirping of the dragons. Luna moved closer to her father. "Father, you know the stone must be shared. The guilt is killing our people from inside. We cannot heal until we admit what we did." "What we did?" Aldrin repeated, his voice bitter. "What I did." Jake looked between them, understanding dawning. "You were there, in the war. I gave the orders." Aldrin said, "I was young and frightened and proud. I thought humans were a threat to our expansion, so I ordered the first strike. Made it look like they attacked us first. And for 50 years I have carried that lie." The memory stone pulsed with golden light as if responding to Aldrin's confession. "Show him," Luna said to her father. "Show Jake what really happened. Let him judge if his people can forgive." Aldrin laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Forgive? The humans lost millions because of my lies. Why would they forgive? Because holding on to hate hurts them more than it hurts you," Jake said. The words came from somewhere deep inside him. "My grandmother knew that everyone who lost someone knows that, but we are too afraid to let go. Afraid that forgiving means forgetting." Star flew up and landed on Jake's shoulder. The little dragon weighed almost nothing, but Jake felt its warmth, its trust. The other two dragons moved closer to him as well. Aldrin watched this with something like wonder in his eyes. "In 500 years, I have never seen dragons accept someone so quickly. They usually take months to trust even elves. They know," Jake said carefully, "that I do not want to hurt anyone. I just want to understand." Luna held out the memory stone. "Again, Father, let him see, please." Aldrin sighed and suddenly looked very tired. "Very well. But know this, human, once you see, you cannot unsee. Once you know, you become responsible for that knowledge." "I understand," Jake said. "No," Aldrin said. "You do not. But you will." He waved his hand and the memory stone floated from Luna to hover in front of Jake. It spun slowly, light dancing inside it. Touch it, Aldrin commanded. See what I have hidden. See why I wake screaming in the night. See the blood on my hands that will never wash clean. Jake reached out. His fingers brushed the warm surface of the sphere. The world exploded into images and sounds and feelings that were not his own. He was Aldrin, young and proud, standing on the bridge of a warship. The human colony ships had just arrived, peaceful and unaware. They sent messages of greeting, hoping to share the planet. But young Aldrin saw only threat, only competition for resources. He gave the order. Fire. Jake watched human ships burn, children screaming, parents trying to shield their families with their own bodies. The colony stations breaking apart in space, thousands dying in minutes. Then he saw Aldrin changing the records, making it look like humans fired first, sending false reports to the Elf Council, starting a war that would last 50 years. All because of pride and fear. Jake gasped and pulled his hand back. He was on his knees on the crystal platform, tears streaming down his face. The dragons surrounded him, making soft, comforting sounds. Luna knelt beside him. I am sorry, she whispered. It is a terrible burden to see. Jake looked up at Aldrin, who stood watching with haunted eyes. All those people. Jake said, all those children. Yes. Aldrin said, all of them. My responsibility. My crime. Jake stood, slowly. His legs shook, but he managed. Why show me this? Why now? Because Aldrin said I am dying. Luna made a small sound of pain. But Aldrin continued, elves live long, but not forever. I have maybe a year left. And I cannot die with this secret. When I am gone, Luna will be leader of our clan. She should not inherit my lies, so you want me to what? Jake asked. Tell everyone. 'Cause a war. No, Luna said quickly. We want you to help us heal both races. We need to reveal the truth, but in a way that brings peace, not more death. Jake laughed, and it sounded a little hysterical. You want me, a nobody miner, to somehow convince humans to forgive the worst betrayal in our history? Not alone, Luna said. Together with others who want peace more than revenge, with proof that both races have suffered enough. The dragons flew up and circled around Jake, and Luna's star landed on Jake's head while the blue and green ones perched on his shoulders. He must have looked ridiculous, but somehow their presence made him feel stronger. There is more in the stone. Aldrin said. Good things too. How humans and elves worked together before the war. How we could work together again. How we are more alike than different. Jake felt the weight of what they were asking. It was too much, too big. But then he thought about his grandmother, about her refusing to hate even after losing everything. He thought about the miners below working every day just to survive, while elves and humans lived apart, suspicious and afraid. He thought about Luna, brave enough to reach out to a human despite everything. All right? Jake said, I will help. But we do this my way. Slow and careful. No grand revelations, just truth spreading. Person by person. Luna smiled, and even Aldrin looked relieved. There is one more thing, Aldrin said. The dragons have chosen you. That means something ancient, something powerful. They will stay with you now. What? Jake looked at the three little creatures. But they are Luna's. Not anymore, Luna said with a sad smile. Dragons choose. Once in their lifetime they have chosen you. Jake Miller. You are their person now. Star chirped and nuzzled Jake's cheek. The blue and green dragons made agreeing sounds. But I do not know how to take care of dragons. Jake protested. You will learn, Luna said, and they will protect you, which you will need. Some people will not want the truth. Revealed, Aldrin stepped forward and did something that shocked Jake. He bowed. Not a deep bow, but a bow. Nonetheless, you have courage, human, he said. More than I had at your age or even now. Take care of my daughter's dragons and help us find redemption. Jake bowed back, not sure if he was doing it right. I will try, my lord. Jake made it back to his mining station just as the lunch bell rang. His supervisor barely looked up from his datapad as Jake grabbed his cart and got back to work. The memory stone sat heavy in his jacket pocket, and he could feel the three invisible dragons adjusting themselves on his shoulders. Nobody noticed anything different. That was good. Jake needed time to think. That night in his small quarters, Jake sat on his narrow bed and pulled out the memory stone. The dragons became visible again. As soon as he closed the door, they explored his room, sniffing at everything and making small chirping sounds. Star seemed to like the heating vent and curled up on top of it. The blue dragon, who Jake decided to call Sky, investigated under the bed. The green one. Moss jumped onto the small shelf where Jake kept his few belongings. "How am I going to feed you?" Jake asked them. They all looked at him, and he could have sworn they were laughing. Star flew over and dropped something in his hand. It was a small crystal from the mine, glowing faintly. "You eat crystals," Jake said. "Of course you do, dragon magic and all that." The dragons made happy sounds and began crunching the crystal Star had brought. They seemed to share it equally, each taking small bites. Jake held up the memory stone, watching the golden light swirl inside. Tomorrow he would have to start sharing this somehow. But with who, a knock at his door made him jump. He quickly hid the stone and whispered the elvish word Luna had taught him. The dragons vanished. "Come in," Jake called. The door opened and Amy Chen walked in. Amy worked in the same mining sector as Jake. She was tough and smart, and people listened to her. She was also one of the few people Jake considered a friend missed. "You at lunch?" Amy said. "You feeling okay?" Jake nodded. "Just needed some air." Amy sat on the only chair in the room. "You look different." Something happened. Jake wanted to tell her everything, but he had to be careful. "You know the crystal platforms up on the mountain? Everyone knows them," Amy said. "Nobody goes there, though, elf territory." "What if I told you I went there today?" Jake said, watching her reaction. Amy leaned forward, eyes wide. "You did not." "I did," Jake said. "And I met someone." Amy stood up quickly. "Jake, that is dangerous." "The treaty says." "I know what the treaty says," Jake interrupted. "But Amy, what if the treaty is based on a lie? What if everything we think we know about the war is wrong?" Amy stared at him. "You are scaring me. What are you talking about?" Jake made a decision. Amy was trustworthy. She had lost her grandfather in the war, but never spoke with hatred about elves. She would understand. "Lock the door," Jake said. Amy looked worried, but did as he asked. When she turned back, Jake was holding the memory stone. "What is that?" Amy whispered. "It's truth," Jake said. "An elf woman named Luna gave it to me. Her father was there too, Aldrin. He is some kind of elf." "Lord Jake, you need to put that away and forget this happened," Amy said. "This is too big, too dangerous." "Maybe," Jake said. "But Amy, I saw what really happened. The elves started the war, not us. They attacked first, then covered it up." Amy sat down hard on the chair. "That cannot be true." Jake held out the stone. "Touch it. See for yourself." Amy shook her head. "I do not want to know, but we need to know." Jake said, "How can we heal if we do not know what really happened?" Amy was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and touched the stone. Jake watched her face change as the memories flooded through her. Shock, then horror, then sadness. Tears ran down her cheeks when she pulled her hand back. She was shaking. "All those people," Amy whispered. "They lied for 50 years. "Yes," Jake said. "But Aldrin, the elf who gave the orders, he wants to make it right before he dies. And Luna want to reveal the truth, bring our races together." Amy laughed, but it was bitter. "Together after what they did. That is what I said at first," Jake said. "But Amy, keeping the anger will not bring anyone back. It will just keep us separated and afraid." Something moved on Jake's shoulder and Amy jumped back. "What was that?" Jake spoke the elvish word and the dragons became visible. Amy nearly fell off her chair. "Dragons," she breathed, "real dragons. They chose me," Jake said. "Well, technically they were Luna's, but they decided they liked me better." Star flew over to Amy and sniffed her carefully. Then the little purple dragon settled on her lap, purring. Amy looked like she might cry again, but for a different reason. "They are beautiful," she said, stroking Star's scales. Jake smiled. "They are also my bodyguards, apparently." Luna says some people will not want the truth revealed. Amy looked up at him. This is really happening. You are really going to try to share this? We are going to try. Jake corrected. I need help, Amy. I cannot do this alone. Amy was quiet, petting Star, who seemed to have decided Amy was acceptable. The other two dragons watched from their perches. My grandfather died in the first attack, Amy said. Finally, my grandmother raised my mother alone. She never remarried, never stopped wearing his ring. I know, Jake said, but Amy continued, she also never taught us to hate. She said hate was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. She would want me to help you. So you will. Jake asked Amy, stood up carefully, placing Star on the bed. I will. But we need to be smart about this. We cannot just tell everyone at once. It would cause panic, maybe violence. I know, Jake said. Luna and I are meeting tomorrow night to plan. Will you come? Amy nodded. Then she smiled slightly. You know, this is insane, right? A miner and an elf princess working together to heal a 50-year war. When you put it like that, it does sound crazy. Jake admitted. The next night, Jake and Amy climbed the mountain path together. The dragons flew above them invisible, but Jake could hear their wings. The memory stone was safe in Jake's pocket. Luna was waiting on the crystal platform, but she was not alone. Two other elves stood with her. Both young-looking, though, with elves. That could mean they were 100 years old. These are my friends, Luna said. Joran and Kaya. They want to help. The elf called Joran was tall and thin, with green hair that looked like leaves. His eyes were kind but sad. Kaya was shorter, with skin that seemed to shimmer and hair like spun gold. She watched the humans with curiosity. Amy stepped forward. I am Amy, I work with. Jake. Joran smiled. It is good to meet you. We have watched the human settlements for years but never spoken to anyone. Why now? Amy asked. Because Luna has been trying to convince us for months that peace is possible, Kaya said. When the dragons chose your friend, we knew she was right. Star became visible and flew to Luna, nuzzling her former owner. Luna smiled, but Jake saw sadness in her eyes. You miss them? Jake said. Every moment, Luna admitted. But they are where they need to be. Dragons know things we do not understand. Joran pulled out a map and spread it on the crystal. It's a hologram showing both human and elf settlements. We have been thinking about how to spread the truth. Joran said, we cannot just announce it. That would be disaster. Agreed. Amy said, we need to start small with people who already want peace. There is a group, Kaya said. Some elves who think the separation is wrong. They meet in secret, afraid of being called traitors, and there are humans who feel the same. Jake added, people who are tired of the fear and suspicion. So we start there, Luna said. Small meetings, carefully chosen people. Let the truth spread, naturally, like planting seeds, Amy said. It takes time, but the growth is stronger. They planned for hours. As the sun set, the dragons became visible and played around them, chasing each other in flying games that made everyone laugh. Even talking about such serious things, the dragons brought moments of joy. We should start with the miners, Joran suggested. They are the ones who suffer most from the separation. They do dangerous work while we live in comfort. Above, some elves feel guilty about that, Kaya added. They would be open to change. Jake thought about his co-workers. Many of them just wanted better lives for their families. They did not care about politics or old wars. They cared about fair treatment and opportunity. There is something else, Luna said. My father wants to meet with more humans. He says he needs to apologize personally to those whose families were hurt. That is dangerous. Amy said, some people might attack him. He knows, Luna said. But he says facing that danger is part of his penance. Jake stood and walked to the edge of the platform. Below the mining colony, lights were coming on, tiny dots of light in the darkness. Above, the elf cities floated like glowing clouds. So separate but sharing the same sky, it will not be easy, Jake said. People on both sides will resist. Some will call us traitors. Yes, Luna agreed, standing beside him. But is the alternative better? 50 more years of separation. 50 more years of fear. No, Jake said firmly. The dragons landed on his shoulders and head like they knew he needed support. We do this, it might fail, but we try. Amy joined them at the platform edge. Together we are stronger than alone. Joran and Kaya came too. 5 people from 2 races standing together. It was a small start, but all great changes began small. When do we begin? Amy asked. Luna smiled. Tomorrow. I will bring the first group of elves who want to listen. Jake, you bring humans you trust. We meet here and share the stone. And after that? Kaya asked. After that? Jake said, we keep going. One person at a time. One truth at a time. Until the lie becomes impossible to maintain. The suns had set completely now. Stars filled the purple sky, different from Earth stars, but beautiful in their own way. Jake thought about his grandmother, about her refusing to let hate poison her heart. She would be proud of what they were trying to do. Star chirped and nuzzled his cheek. The little dragons seemed to agree. They climbed down the mountain that night with hope and fear mixed in their hearts. The path ahead was dangerous and uncertain, but they were not walking it alone in his quarters later. Jake wrote a message to leave for whoever might find it if things went wrong. The first meeting almost ended in disaster. Jake had brought 5 miners he trusted. Amy was there, of course. Also, Tom Wright, who had lost his son in a raid 20 years ago. Maria Santos, whose mother had been a war nurse and seen terrible things. Old Ben Carter, who everyone respected. And surprisingly, Lisa Park, the shift supervisor, who had noticed Jake missing that first day but said nothing. Luna brought her elves, Joran and Kaya, of course, but also 3 others, including one very old elf. With white hair and eyes like stars, his name was Theron, and he had fought in the war. When Theron saw Tom Wright, they both froze. Tom had fought too, and somehow they recognized something in each other. You, Theron said, pointing at Tom. The Battle of Colony 7. Tom stepped forward, fists clenched. You killed my brother. No, Jake said quickly, stepping between them. Please, we are here for peace. Theron raised his hand, but not to attack. In that battle, I lost my son. He was trying to protect human civilians. When our own forces fired on the area, Tom stopped moving. What your brother Theron said was his name. Kyle Tom nodded, unable to speak. He saved my son's unit. Theron said. My son wrote about it in his final message before he died. A human soldier who helped them evacuate children even though we were enemies. The 2 old soldiers stared at each other. Decades of pain between them. Luna stepped forward with the memory stone. Let everyone see, she said. Let everyone understand. One by one, they touched the stone. Jake watched their faces change as they saw the truth. Some cried, some grew angry, some just looked tired. Maria was the first to speak after. So much death, she said, for nothing, for a lie, not for nothing. Kaya said gently, for fear. Fear makes people do terrible things. Old Ben sat down heavily on the crystal platform. In all my years, he said, I never thought I would see elves and humans in the same place talking instead of fighting. Lisa had been quiet. But now she spoke. If we share this truth, people will riot. Both sides will want revenge. Not if we do it right, Amy said. Not if we show them a better path. Tom walked slowly to Theron and held out his hand. The elf looked surprised but took it. I am tired of hating. Tom said my brother would not want me to carry this forever. Nor would my son, Theron replied. The dragons who had been invisible became visible and flew around the group. Star landed on Theron's shoulder, and the old elf smiled. I have not seen dragons in 100 years, he said. They disappeared during the war. Too much violence drove them away. They are coming back, Luna said. That means healing is possible. Jake felt hope growing, but also worry. They had 11 people who knew the truth. Out of millions on the planet, we need to reach more people, Jake said. But carefully, there is a holiday coming. Lisa said, Unity Day. It's supposed to celebrate the treaty, but nobody really celebrates it. What if we did something then? Like what? Maria asked. Luna smiled. What if we had a real celebration? Humans and elves together. Music, food, games. Show people what peace could look like. That is dangerous, Joran warned. There are those who would stop us violently. Then we need protection, Jake said. From who? Amy asked. The military follows the treaty from us. Theron said other veterans like Tom and myself. We swore to protect our people. That includes protecting peace. Tom nodded. I know others who are tired of the old hate. They would help. The dragons flew in excited circles, seeming to sense the energy in the group. Over the next weeks, their small group grew. Each person carefully chosen, each one touching the memory stone and seeing the truth. Some left unable to handle it, but most stayed. Jake and Luna met every night on the platform, planning and organizing. The dragons split their time between them during the day, staying with Jake in the mines, then flying to Luna in the evenings. 3 weeks before Unity Day, something unexpected happened. Jake was working in Mineshaft 7 when his supervisor Lisa called him to the office. Waiting there was a human Jake had never seen before. He wore expensive clothes and had the soft look of someone who had never done physical labor. Mr. Miller. The man said, I am Director Colin Hayes from the Colonial Administration. Jake kept his face neutral, but inside he was worried. What can I do for you, sir? The man smiled, but it was not warm. I hear you have been spending time on the crystal platforms. Jake said nothing, waiting. That is elf territory, Mr. Miller, the director continued. The treaty is very clear. I go there after work hours, Jake said. On my own time, the director leaned forward. Yes. But you see, some people are concerned. Some people think you might be planning something disturbing. Like what? Jake asked. Like breaking the peace we have worked so hard to maintain. The director said, There are rumors, Mr. Miller, about humans and elves meeting together. Jake met his eyes. I have made friends with some elves. Is that illegal? The director stood. No, not illegal, but unwise, Mr. Miller. Very unwise. The separation exists for a reason. Our species are too different. Mixing leads to conflict. Jake wanted to argue but kept quiet. The director did not know about the memory stone or their plans. That was good. I would hate, the director said, for something to happen to your job here or to your friends. Good miners are hard to find, but not impossible to replace. It was a threat. Jake understood that. I understand, sir. Jake said. The director left. But Jake knew they were running out of time. Someone had noticed their meetings. Someone was watching. That night he told Luna and the others. We knew this would happen. Luna said. My father has been questioned too. The Elf Council is suspicious. Need to move faster, Amy said. Unity Day is still 3 weeks away. No, Theron said. If we rush, we fail. We stick to the plan, but they know about us, Maria argued. They suspect, Luna corrected. They do not know about the memory stone or how many of us there are. Jake stood and paced. The dragons followed him, walking on the ground instead of flying, mimicking his movement. We need a distraction, Jake said. Something to make them look elsewhere. Like what? Tom asked. Jake stopped and turned to Luna. Can your father get us a meeting with the colonial director and the Elf Council? Not about the truth. Just a meeting about improving worker conditions. Luna tilted her head. That might work. They would focus on that instead of our real plan. Joran laughed. It is clever. They watch the official meeting while we prepare the real celebration over the next 2 weeks. Aldrin and Lisa Park formally requested a joint meeting about mining conditions. The Colonial Administration and Elf Council agreed, surprised but curious, while they prepared for that meeting. Jake and the others worked on Unity Day. They had nearly 100 people now who knew the truth. Humans and elves working together in secret. They prepared food from both cultures. Music that mixed human and elf traditions. Games that children from both races could play together. Tom and Theron organized security, veterans from both races who would protect the celebration. They called themselves the Peace Guard. 5 days before Unity Day. Jake was in his quarters when someone knocked. He expected Amy or Lisa. But when he opened the door, Director Hayes stood there with 2 security guards. The dragons were invisible, but Jake felt them tense. "Going somewhere?" Director Hayes asked, looking past Jake into the room. "No, sir," Jake said. "Just resting after my shift." The director pushed past him and entered the room. He looked around, touching things, moving them. "I know you are planning something, Miller," he said. "Your meetings on the platform, your new elf friends. You think you are being subtle, but you are not." Jake stayed calm. "If you have proof of wrongdoing, arrest me." The director turned and smiled. "That is the thing, Miller. I do not need proof. I just need suspicion. And I am very suspicious." He walked to Jake's bed and started to lift the mattress. If he found the memory stone hidden there, everything would be over, but Star chose that moment to act. The invisible dragon knocked over the water pitcher on the shelf. It crashed to the floor and the director spun around. "What was that?" he demanded. "Old pipes?" Jake said quickly. "This unit has problems all the time." The director stared at him, then at the wet floor. Something was not right, and he knew it, but could not prove it. 3 days, Miller," he said finally. 3 days until Unity Day. If anything happens, anything at all, I will hold you responsible." He left with his guards. Jake waited until their footsteps faded, then collapsed on his bed. That was too close. Star became visible and nuzzled his face. "Thank you," Jake whispered. "To the dragon, you saved everything." The next days passed in a blur. Final preparations were made. The location was chosen, a neutral valley between the mining colony and the lowest elf city. People spread the word carefully, quietly. The night before, Unity Day. Jake could not sleep. He stood on the crystal platform with Luna and the others, looking at the valley below. "Tomorrow," Luna said, "everything changes, or tomorrow we fail." Jake replied, "And things get worse." Amy put her hand on his shoulder. "We will not fail. Too many people believe now." Aldrin appeared, as he often did, without warning. The official meeting was a success. He said they agreed to better conditions for miners. "They think they have given us what we wanted. Good." Jake said, "Let them think that." Aldrin looked tired but determined. "Tomorrow I tell the truth to hundreds of people. Tomorrow I face judgment. You do not have to." Luna said, "We can share the stone without you." "No." Aldrin said, "I must be there. I must show that even those who did wrong can choose to make it right." The dragons flew up and circled Aldrin. He smiled as they passed through his robes like tiny ghosts. "Even the dragons forgive," he said. "How can people do less?" That night, Jake wrote another message in case things went wrong. He wanted someone to know what they had tried. He wrote about hope, about courage, about the power of truth to heal even the deepest wounds. Unity Day dawned with purple skies and gentle wind. The official celebrations were small and formal, just government officials making speeches. Nobody really listened to. But in the valley between the human settlement and the elf city, something different was happening. Jake arrived early with Amy and the other humans. They had set up tables and cooking stations, games for children, and a small stage for music. The dragons flew overhead, visible to everyone now. There was no point in hiding anymore. Luna and her elves arrived from the other direction. They brought glowing crystal decorations that floated in the air like tiny stars. They had food from their cities, delicacies most humans had never seen. At first, the two groups stayed separate, even though they were in the same space. Old habits and 50 years of fear do not disappear instantly. Then a human child, a little girl named Emma, ran across the invisible line chasing a ball. She crashed into a young elf boy named Sylvan. Both children fell down, and for a moment everyone held their breath. Then Emma laughed and helped Sylvan up. The elf boy laughed too, and they ran off together, chasing the ball. That was all it took. Other children followed. Then curious adults. The smell of food drew people together. Humans trying elf crystal bread. Elves tasting human stew. Jake stood with Luna watching it happen. Around them, the three dragons played in the air, doing loops and spins that made the children point and cheer. "It's working," Luna said with wonder. "It's actually working." It's starting, Jake corrected. We have a long way to go. More people arrived every hour. Word had spread despite efforts to keep it quiet. Humans from the mines, elves from the lower city. They came carefully, suspiciously, but they came. Tom and Theron stood with the Peace Guard veterans from both races keeping watch. They expected trouble, and they were right. Director Hayes arrived at noon with a squad of human security forces. At the same time, an elf lord named Valen appeared with elf warriors. Stop this immediately, Hayes shouted. This gathering is illegal. It violates the treaty, Valen added. Both races are to remain separate. Jake stepped forward with Luna. We are sharing a meal, he said. Is that really so dangerous? You are undermining 50 years of peace, Hayes said. Luna shook her head. 50 years of separation is not peace. It is just a long pause in war. Valen raised his hand and energy crackled. This ends now. No, a voice said, and Aldrin appeared between the two groups. It does not, Father, Valen said, surprised. Lord Aldrin, what are you doing here? I am here to tell the truth, Aldrin said loudly enough for everyone to hear. A truth I have hidden for 50 years. The crowd grew quiet. Even the children stopped playing. Director Hayes stepped forward. Lord Aldrin, whatever you think you are doing, I am doing what I should have done long ago. Aldrin interrupted. He pulled out a memory stone larger than the one Jake carried. This contains the true history of the war, who started it and why. Valen moved toward him. You cannot share that. It will destroy everything. Everything built on lies deserves to be destroyed, Aldrin said. He activated the stone and it projected images into the air for everyone to see. The first attack, the elf ships firing on peaceful human colonies, Aldrin himself giving the orders. The crowd gasped. Humans and elves alike watched in horror as the truth played out. This is fake, Hayes said desperately. This is propaganda. No, Tom Wright said, stepping forward. I was there. I survived that attack. What the stone shows is true. Other veterans, both human and elf, came forward, confirming what they saw. Aldrin stood in the center of it all, an old elf facing the consequences of his actions. I ordered the first strike. He said I started the war out of fear and pride. Millions died because of my lies. The crowd was growing angry. Jake could feel it. Humans who had lost family, elves who had been lied to by their own leaders. Someone threw a rock. It hit Aldrin in the shoulder. But he did not move. Then Star flew down and landed on Aldrin's head. The little purple dragon spread its wings and chirped loudly. The other two dragons joined, circling Aldrin protectively. A voice from the crowd yelled, "Why are the dragons protecting him?" Because Jake said loudly, stepping beside Aldrin. They know something we need to learn, that people can change, that admitting wrong and trying to make it right takes more courage than hiding behind lies. Luna joined them. 50 years of hate has not brought back a single person who died. 50 more years will not either. But we can choose to build something new. A human woman stepped forward. She was old, walking with a cane. My husband died in the war. She said to Aldrin, "Did you kill him personally?" "No," Aldrin said, "but I created the war that killed him. I am responsible." The woman was quiet for a moment, then said, "My husband used to say that hate was like holding hot coal. You only burn yourself." She looked around at the crowd. "I am tired of being burned." An elf child tugged at his mother's robe. "Why do we have to live apart?" he asked. His mother had no answer. Amy stepped onto the small stage. "We do not have to live apart," she said. "We choose to, because we are afraid. But look around you. Look at what happened today before the politicians arrived. Humans and elves eating together. Children playing together. Is this really so terrible?" Director Hayes pushed forward. "Enough of this sentiment. The treaty exists for good reasons. Name one." Jake challenged. Hayes opened his mouth, then closed it. He actually could not think of a real reason, just the fear that had driven policy for decades. Valen. The elf lord spoke. "Our races are too different. We cannot mix. Yet here we are." Tom said, Mixed, and not killing each other. Seems like we are doing fine until you showed up. The crowd murmured agreement. Then something unexpected happened. The human child Emma and the elf boy, Sylvain, ran onto the stage holding hands. "We want to be friends," Emma announced. "Why can't we?" Sylvain added. The simple question from children hung in the air. No one had a good answer. Luna knelt beside them. "You can be friends," she said. "In fact, we want you to be friends, Director." Hayes moved toward the stage. But the peace guard blocked him. "This is not over," he said. "You cannot just throw away 50 years of law. Watch us," Amy said. The crowd cheered humans and elves together. Valen tried to summon his warriors, but many of them had put down their weapons. They were watching. The dragons play with children, watching humans and elves share food. They were seeing what peace could really look like. Aldrin walked to the center of the crowd. "I have a proposal," he said loud enough for all to hear. "The treaty should be dissolved, replaced with something new. Equal partnership between races. Shared cities. Shared resources. Shared future. Impossible." Hayes said. "Is it?" Jake asked. "Look around, Director. Your impossible is happening right now." More people were arriving every minute. The Valley was filling with humans and elves who had heard something amazing was happening. Music started. Someone had brought instruments, elf harps and human guitars playing together. Children danced. The dragons flew through the crowd, leaving trails of sparkles that made everyone laugh. Hayes and Valen stood together now, united in their opposition, but increasingly alone. Their guards were watching the celebration with wonder. Some had even joined in. "This is bigger than us," Valen said to Hayes. "Yes," Hayes agreed, and for the first time he sounded afraid. Jake found himself standing with Luna at the edge of the stage, watching their dream become reality. "Your father was right," Jake said. "You were brave to start this. You were brave to help," Luna replied. "Without you, none of this happens." Star landed on their joined hands and chirped happily. The celebration went on all day and into the night. More officials came to try to stop it, but the crowd was too big, too determined. The fear that had kept the races apart for 50 years was breaking down. Aldrin spent the day apologizing personally to anyone who would listen. Some forgave him, some did not. But he faced them all as the sun set. Jake stood on the stage with Luna, Amy, Tom Theron, and all the others who had made this possible today. Jake said to the crowd, "We showed that peace is not just the absence of war. It is the choice to see each other as people, not enemies. It is the courage to admit wrongs and seek forgiveness. It is the wisdom to build bridges instead of walls," Luna added. "Change will not be easy. There will be those on both sides who resist, but we have something they do not. What someone called out hope." Luna said, "And each other." The crowd cheered. The dragons flew overhead. In celebration, Director Hayes and Lord Valen had left, unable to stop what had started that night. As people finally began to return home, Jake sat with Luna on the crystal platform, where it all began. The three dragons curled up between them. "We did," Luna said, sounding amazed. "We started it," Jake corrected. "Tomorrow the real work begins. Laws to change cities, to integrate years of mistrust, to overcome," Luna smiled. "But tonight we celebrate. Tonight we proved it is possible." In the distance they could see lights, humans and elves walking home together. Still separate but no longer enemies. Jake thought about his grandmother. She had refused to let hate poison her heart. Now he understood why. She knew that healing was possible, but only if someone was brave enough to start it. A year later, Jake stood in the new integrated city. Humans and elves lived and worked side by side. It was not perfect. There were still problems, still those who resisted, but it was better. Aldrin had lived just long enough to see the new treaty signed. He died peacefully with Luna at his side. His last words were, "I am forgiven." Luna now led the combined council with Amy as her human counterpart. They worked to heal both races, to build something neither could create. Alone, the dragons had multiplied. Somehow their return had triggered others to come out of hiding. Now dozens of them flew through the cities, choosing partners among both races.